Hello Junior Tuckies, I am Mrs. Breedenkamp, and in today's lesson I'm going to teach you why we use Shakespeare in the modern world. Let's get into it. This is the age-old question, why do we still study Shakespeare? And I can tell you this, it's not because your English teachers won't let him go. In fact, grade 8s, it actually helps with your critical thinking skills. So what does it really do? We'll give you a piece of writing and we want you to try figure out what it means. So that's actually teaching you how to analyze something. Many images and symbols in his work actually still affect us as modern people today. His themes are still relatable 400 years later. Themes like love, betrayal, jealousy, and ambition. He was also a trendsetter in his time. He created his own type of English, the Shakespearean English. And his plays were trending and extremely popular, especially because at the time a lot of people, a large part of society, could not read, so they watched his plays for entertainment. Here are some Shakespearean facts. So he was baptized, given his name, on the 26th of April, 1564, and passed away on the 23rd of April, 1616. He was a playwright, he was a poet, and he was an actor. If we look at Shakespeare, he's also regarded as one of the greatest writers in the English language. That's why we study him today. He's also called England's national poet, or the Bard upon Avon, or simply the Bard. The Bard was his nickname. He wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, 3 long narrative poems, and a few other verses in his lifetime. All of his plays and sonnets have been translated into every single major living language. And he's said to be the most influential writer that the English language has had so far. Perhaps you think, why am I even watching this lesson? Why am I even interested in Shakespeare in the modern world? Well, grade 8s, things that we say today come directly from Shakespeare. So I've given you a nice long list over here of famous Shakespearean sayings. Let's have a look at a few. So, a wild goose chase. This comes from Romeo and Juliet. Going on a wild goose chase means that you're trying to find something and it's very difficult. It's like chasing a goose. Or, that'll be all and end all. That means that once it's started, it will end a particular way. Or if we look at something coming full circle, meaning it comes around a circle, everything leads into one another. Or in much ado about nothing, to lie low, to make sure that you aren't in any type of trouble, that you aren't sticking out anywhere. So having a look at these sayings, you can definitely see how we, as the modern day society, still use things or sayings that Shakespeare made up 400 years ago. This is a list of Shakespeare's works, so we can actually divide his works into comedies and into tragedies. So comedies, will you find it funny today? Probably not. But remember, we are of a different time. In the comedies, there is always going to be a lot of love stories. The plots intertwine a lot, and it usually ends in wedding. Whereas the tragedies, this often happens where people die at the end. Nearly all of the characters die at the end. So it ends up having often a character that has a fatal flaw, and that's the reason that many people die. So quite famous comedies that you might be aware of now is The Merchant of Venice, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, Taming of the Shrew, The Tempest, Twelfth Night, or even The Winter's Tale. Then the tragedies, his most famous tragedies include Hamlet, Macbeth, and Othello, as well as Romeo and Juliet. Let's have a look at some Shakespearean translations. I'm not going to read all of them to you because you're just going to be listening to me reading off of a screen. But let's have a look at the very common one. So thou means you. Okay, thee is also you, but it's almost like when it's the object. So I give this to thee. Thy means your, so thy dagger floats before me. Thine means yours. So what's mine is thine. And then I've given you a list over here of all of the different words that mean specific things. So when you do Shakespeare, perhaps in grade 8 or in grade 9, you can come back to this and look for it. So for example, we have here a character. Now we think a character is a person who acts in a play. However, character can also mean a letter or a word. Over here on this slide, we can see that heavy, we think that something is heavy, it means it's difficult to pick up. But in Shakespearean terms, it means to be sad, to have a lot of pain, or to be mournful. Then we get a knave, the Knave. That is a young boy or a servant. And then you can also think of mate, to confuse or to watch. So, when you're doing Shakespeare one day, go back to this and use it as a reference. This is an extract from Romeo and Juliet. So what I've done is I've showed you the Shakespearean English on the left-hand side and the direct translation into modern day English on the right-hand side. There's a wonderful website called No Fear Shakespeare that does this for you. Use it as an aid when you're doing any kind of Shakespeare. So I'm going to go line by line with this. So let's start off with the Shakespearean version. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. So what does that mean in English? It's the beautiful city of Verona, where our story takes place. A long-standing hatred between two families erupts into new violence. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So what does that mean in modern day English? Citizens stain their hands with blood of their fellow citizens. A pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventure piteously overthrow, doth with their death bury their parents' strife. So what does that mean? Two unlucky children of these enemy families become lovers and commit suicide. Their unfortunate death puts an end to their parents' feud. The fearful passage of their death and marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children and naught could remove. So what does that mean? For the next 2 hours, we will watch the story of their doomed love and their parents' anger, which nothing but the children's death could stop. Which by their children's end, over here you're going to see the 2 hours, naught could remove is their 2 hours traffic of our stage. And then finally, the which if you with patient ears attend, that here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So, if you listen patiently, we'll make up for everything we've left out in this prologue on stage. That's it for today, Junior Tuckies. I hope that you understand why we study Shakespeare. Have a good day. Bye-bye.